will now hear the message from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, on the International Day of Peace.
Every year on the International Day of Peace, the United Nations calls on warring parties around the world to observe a 24-hour ceasefire. But peace is not just about putting weapons aside. It is about building societies where people share the benefits of prosperity on a healthy planet. The theme of this year's International Day of Peace highlights the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, as building blocks for peace. Sustainable development is essential for lasting peace, and both depend on respect for human rights. This is a time of turmoil and uncertainty. People fear the next extreme storm, terrorist attack, or outbreak of disease. But this is also a time of opportunity to set the world on a better path. All of us can be sustainable development advocates. On this International Day of Peace, express your commitment to peace by becoming a champion for the SDGs.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We thank Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for his words on the occasion of the International Day of Peace. We would also like to thank Karim Waswi, the conductor of the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra, for his opening tunes. Welcome to the Geneva Peace Talks 2016. And allow me to give a special welcome to all our online viewers who are joining us all over the world, and also those who are joining us through social media and follow the hashtag GVA PeaceTalks. My name is Achim Wennemann. I'm the executive coordinator of the Geneva Peace Building Platform. And together with my colleague Sarah Noble, who's head of PeaceTalks, and also with Interpeace, we will be your moderators this afternoon.
The PeaceTalks is an initiative that showcases the inspirational stories of people making a contribution to peace. They started right here in Geneva in 2013 through the first ever Geneva Peace Talks, co-founded by the United Nations Office at Geneva, the Geneva Peace Building Platform, Interpeace, and the Swiss government. The spirit of Geneva to resolve conflict through dialogue and negotiation has gone global, and the Peace Talks have traveled to Stockholm, Nairobi, and Ottawa.
This year's Geneva Peace Talks we have been able to bring to you with a range of new partners, including the Kofi Annan Foundation, the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining, the Geneva Center for the Democratic Control of Armed Forces, and the Geneva Hub of the Global Shapers Community. The event has also been made possible with the generous support of the Swiss Confederation, the Republic and Canton of Geneva, the City of Geneva, and Mirabeau. And over the many years, we have also become sort of a Geneva Peace Talks and Peace Talks family. And I'm very, very happy to see one very special person in today's audience, which is Léa Narjout, who's sitting right there, who 4 years ago, in one of the first Geneva Peace Talks, and in fact the first peace talk ever, gave a wonderful peace talk when she was just about 14. And she will now go to university studying international relations here in Geneva. So here we have an example of the Geneva Peace Talk family. Sarah.
The theme of our Geneva Peace Talks today is Peace Happens. Despite the war and violence you see on your TV every day, there are many peace initiatives taking place that don't receive the attention that they deserve. Today, we're going to bring these initiatives and the people behind them to light.
Over the course of this peace talk, we will be focusing on 3 ways in which peace happens: through leadership at every level, through human connections and strong relationships, and through trust building and tackling obstacles to peace. You will hear from 12 outstanding individuals who are united to share their story about peace and how they have made a difference.
We hope that you're inspired by today's speakers, and throughout this event, we encourage you to think about what you yourself can do in your own daily lives to build peace. So before we start, a few practical issues. This is a multilingual event, so you have headsets at your desk, and there's simultaneous interpretation in English and French. There's a little button on the right that you can press to adjust the language. There'll also be an opportunity to interact directly with the speakers during the reception after the event, so please understand that we won't have any questions or comments. The talks that you're about to hear do not necessarily reflect the views of the speakers or sponsors. And finally, please turn off the ringer on your phone, no flash photography, but please do use social media. And again, our hashtag is #GVA PeaceTalks.
So it's time to start. It's time to start the Geneva Peace Talks 2016. And we will start with the first theme, which is peace happens through leadership at every level. Mimoun very soon will talk about peace happens when young people take a leadership to preventing radicalization. He is founder of 180 Grad Wende, an NGO in Germany that is working on the prevention of radicalization. Mimoun is also part of the Extremely Together project of the Kofi Annan Foundation, and we are very happy to have Mimoun here giving his Geneva Peace Talk. Welcome, Mimoun.
We really live in uncertain times. It's like everyone is wondering what will happen next. An earthquake, a tsunami, maybe the next world war, or maybe we are in a war right now, or a financial crisis. Last week, just a week ago, I met an international businessman, and he told me that he visited several countries in the last months, and everywhere he went, all the businessmen had the same feeling, that something is going on in this world and that something is going wrong in this world. And I'm quite sure that you and me and everyone in the audience and also everyone in this world has this feeling that something is in the air, and it's definitely not love. And if you ask me about the reason for all that, I would just say it's all about weak leadership, or it's about the lack of inspiring and courageous leadership. Look at the refugee crisis. People are still dying in the Mediterranean Sea, and we all know that more than 50% of the refugees are children. Where are the creative solutions? Where is leadership? Look at the growing radicalization threat. If you ask me, it's about the lack of responsibility. Where are the community leaders who oppose this kind of hate in their communities? So it's always the lack of leadership. I know that leadership is a little bit overused, like the word love and peace and freedom. And when I talk about leadership, I don't mean this kind of leadership with well-funded, special designed artificial programs for leaders in which everyone praises the other and everyone wants to become the president. When I talk about leadership, I mean the leadership which is authentic, the bottom-up, authentic leadership from the people and for the people. I just give you an example from my work. I work on the field of radicalization prevention, and analyzing the radicalization phenomenon in the past 5 years of my life, I would just conclude that radicalization is all about social problems. Look into the eyes of young people in several European countries who in different suburbs and banlieues in different European countries. If you look into their eyes, you will find frustration, isolation, exclusion. They feel alienated. We will find discrimination, and you will conclude very fastly that it's easy to encourage these young people to do everything, not only terrorist attacks or selling drugs. So, and if you look, you will find that there is no leader and there is no responsibility. No one feels responsible. In some cases, not even the government. If there is no leader, if there is no leadership, if there is no leader who guides young people who guides young people towards a better life by offering opportunities and alternatives, there will be a leader, but a leader who will lead them to the wrong way. So it's all about leadership. Our world needs courageous and inspiring leadership for togetherness. This is very important. I'm German Moroccan, and I have several examples from the German history. Germany we had two Germanys in one time, but some political leaders fought for a united Germany, and it became true, even if it was only a dream. My father always told me a story from Morocco. It is about the Moroccan King Mohammed V during the Second World War. During the Second World War, he got the instruction from the Vichy regime to treat the Jewish population in Morocco as second-class citizens. And at that time, the king refused it, even if it was a trend, especially in the countries who were occupied by Nazi troops. And he refused, and he said his famous sentence: "In my country, I don't distinguish between Muslim and Jewish citizens. I only have Moroccan citizens." And to show his stance, he waited till the National Day. And on the National Day, he ordered his servants to prepare the seats of the Jewish community next to the seats to the French delegation, to show his stance and to show that Jewish people matter in his country like Muslim people in his country, and everyone is together and it's one country. What a brave stance, what a unique example of leadership for coexistence. We need such leaders. Nowadays, we have many leaders who even use the language of hate speech, to get elected and to get votes everywhere in the world. And I don't say they are leaders, politicians. For that reason, we need leaders who oppose this kind of hate speech and who really fight for togetherness and for a peaceful world. The first time I met Kofi Annan in the Extremely Together leadership program, and he's one of the great change makers of our time, and it was an honor to meet him. I remember one quote he told me and the other 9 leaders, and it was, "You are the leaders of tomorrow, so don't let me down." And it really, when I heard this quote, I really felt this responsibility on my shoulders. But after a while, I said, okay, yes, we are the leaders of tomorrow, and we have to be glad to carry this responsibility of the future for the people. So I think that there are many unknown leaders out there, and we need more youth leadership empowerment. My colleague Fatima Zaman is one of them. Unfortunately, she was not able to attend here today, but she's unique. I greet Fatima, she watches us from the internet now. And I think we need more youth leadership empowerment, and we have to bring young leaders in an early stage of their life together to build a peaceful future for this world. Today is the International Day of Peace, and I really believe peace is possible. And I also support the slogan and the theme of this event: peace happens. Yes, peace happens, but only through inspiring and courageous leadership. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mimoun, for this outstanding talk, and we're very sorry your colleague Fatima could not join us today. Notre prochain orateur souligne le rôle essentiel.
Our next speaker plays a key role when it comes to female leadership. Dr. Kaba is the Secretary General of the Mano River Union, an intergovernmental organization in West Africa. Welcome, Dr. Kaba.
Bonjour tout le monde, je suis...
A very good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Karan Kaba. I'm a pharmacist by trade. I'm an activist, too, from civil society, a former minister and former United Nations employee. So, in fact, I've had to face a range of different situations in my life. But what I want to talk to you about today is an example of women leaders who were able to settle one of those conflicts which was deemed to be one of the most violent in the 21st century, the Liberian Sierra Leone civil wars. In 1999, female leaders from Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea began to think that the international community and the governments of countries affected by war had already wasted enough time and not found a solution to ensure that the peace agreements that had already been signed were respected. Peace agreements had been signed, and 2 weeks later they were flouted. So the group of women that we were started wondering why there was such systematic violation of the peace agreements, and something just wasn't working. So we had a think, and the very first thing that we noticed was that some real actors in the conflict were not sitting at the negotiating table. And amongst these, there was the priests of the sacred forest. And those who are in the room here and are from Africa know what I'm talking about. This is part of the cultural heritage of our societies. The army has a soldier's code. Civil society, especially these sacred forests, have a code for them. The rebels obey the code of the sacred forests, and the armies obey the army's code, which is derived from the Napoleonic Code. But there, where war is, nobody understands or knows about the Napoleonic Code. So, of course, communication just was not getting through. We were getting peace agreements, the rebels were interpreting them in their way, and clearly the governments that use Western positive law, European law essentially, had their own interpretation. So that was the first thing that we noticed. The second was that the real victims of war are children and women, and there were none of them that were involved in the negotiations. No women at all. And so when you go to negotiations, everyone feels very strongly about their own legitimacy and their own representation, and I don't know what else. So they simply pitted one against the other. And that was the second thing that we noticed. The third was that never, ever during those negotiations did anyone wonder, are we ever really talking about anything? Is anyone ever really interested in peace? Are people interested in peace, in fact? Aren't there some who, in fact, want there to be no peace because they're trading in weapons, because they want to provide humanitarian aid, because they want to make sure that there's something interesting to print in the news media? So maybe not everyone really is interested in peace. And that was the third question that we asked ourselves. So the women leaders that we were decided to go and meet the decision makers in the states that were involved. And in fact, I seized this opportunity to greet Kofi Annan and thank him, the former UN Secretary General, of course. And he listened to us. And I also greet Mr. Oulins, former president of Ghana, who said, I don't know my father, but I know my mother. And when she talks, I listen. So we went there. And we went to the ECOWAS summit of heads of state, and we said to them, look, what you're doing about this is what works and this is what doesn't. We met the leaders of Liberia, Sierra Leone, Comte from Guinea, each of them with their own specific approach. One was an army general, so we spoke to him as one speaks to an army general. Tieman Kaba is a former UN official, so we speak to him in that way. And Chien Delors is a former rebel who became a head of state, so we addressed him in that manner. And the outcome of all that was that we were able to convince them to all sit round the same table and to strike the June 2003 agreement in Accra, in Ghana. And the United Nations asked us to be co-signatories to that agreement. And in December 2003, our organization won the United Nations Human Rights Prize. So the general lesson that we can draw from all of this is that sometimes I think we don't make enough use of the extraordinary potential that women have when it comes to negotiation and mediation. This is the first lesson. And secondly, we always function on the base of knowledge of what we've done 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and we never question, or we don't enough question what we're actually doing now in the international community. And finally, I think that in those countries, including the country I come from, half of the population is less than 30 years old. So they simply know nothing about the First or Second World War. They are plunged in the world of information technology. We live in a global village now. What happens in my village now is on TV, and we have to bear that in mind when we want to build peace. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cabin, for emphasizing the role of female leadership and of youth.
Third speaker is Lionel Eschliman. Lionel is managing director at Mirabeau, a private bank, where he is responsible for the asset management division. He will talk about the leadership in the private sector. After we've been talking about youth and female leadership, now it's the time, what can we learn from the private sector? Lionel, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lionel Eschliman, and I work in finance. I'm one of the four managing partners of the Mirabeau Group, established in Geneva in 1819, and family-owned for 7 generations. We manage investments for private individuals, families, entrepreneurs, but for institutional clients as well. Pension funds, private, public. Yes, I work in finance, one of the most vilified, one of the most controversial sectors that exist, particularly after the great financial crisis of 2008. So what am I doing here today among so many extraordinary people, among so many beautiful people working with strong vocations for beautiful organizations, dedicating their time and their life to humanitarian crises, to wars, to conflicts? Well, before joining the world of finance, I had a real job, as they say. Trained as a lawyer, particularly in human rights, I practiced law for nearly 20 years. And the notion of justice, of defending people's rights, of protecting those who have been wronged by somebody stronger or somebody more powerful than them, has always been somehow at the center of my life. In addition, I believe in the rule of law, because the rule of law is the most powerful guarantor of peace, wherever we are. So what happened to me for joining this world? Well, first of all, the conviction, if you allow me to say something personal, the profound conviction that whatever we do, whatever our job, whatever our career, we can always do things in another way. We can always do things differently. We can always respect people. We can always integrate and include others. Even in the world of finance, which is supposed to be selfish and speculative, it is possible to do things differently, in another way, not trying to maximize the profit for the short term, but adopting a long-term view, responsible, sustainable, integrating others. The second point is that in reality, I discovered that there are many bridges, many relationships between finance and peace. I know, it seems strange and even counterintuitive for many of you, but let's think together for a minute about it. Finance, if we go back to fundamentals, is here to serve men and women, the people, humanity. Simply put, finance is essential to the proper functioning of the economy. Just 3 very short examples: loans, credit, infrastructure credit, loans to enterprises, to people, microcredit. Second example, savings. Savings are investments. Financial institutions invest money in economies, in communities, in projects, in enterprises, make the economy run. Third example, pension monies. My teams manage pension monies, pension fund monies. It has nothing to do, I can assure you, with the excesses of finance and the glamour of finance and trying to shoot for the stars. It is a job of dedication. It is a job of responsibility. It is a job of humility. Why? Because we have to be up to the trust that has been given to us, and managing the future retirement monies of people so that when they retire, they can have a decent retirement with dignity after many, many years of hard life. I hope that through these 3 examples, I have shown somehow that finance is important for the economy. If the economy is the body, finance is the blood or the oxygen. It is essential to its survival and to its development. But why do we need a proper functioning economy? Why do we need a smooth running economy? Well, it's very simple again, to create growth, to create wealth. And we need to create wealth in order to distribute wealth. Without wealth creation, there is no wealth distribution, there is no inclusion, there is no way to make sure that nobody is left behind. And this is crucial for peace again. Nutrition, education, housing, healthcare, all these sectors require a proper functioning economy. So my belief is that without prosperity, without some sort of economic development, you have no peace possible. And the reverse is also true. Without peace, there is no economic development possible. We know that. I mean, many conflicts in history have shown that to us. Somehow, economic development and peace are the 2 sides of the same coin. This is my conviction. But there are other similarities between finance and peace. Both actually are based, for example, on something which is extremely difficult to build, but very easy to destroy. I mean trust. At the origin of many conflicts, many wars, there is mistrust, exclusion. And mistrust is based on, fear of the other or ignorance of the other. And once there is mistrust, dialogue vanishes, exchanges evaporate, relationships become strained. Once trust is rebuilt, dialogues becomes possible again, exchanges become possible again, relationships become calmer. So trust, it can be said, is the most important ingredient of peace. Without trust, however, there is no finance either. I will just give you a very simple example you all know, money. Money only works and only exists because of the trust that people place in it. I believe in it because others believe in it. Whatever my religion, my culture, my political beliefs, my history. And money is an extraordinary means of exchange. In all civilizations, it was already the case. Sumerians, ancient China, Romans, Greeks. It has always been a means of exchange. It has been said that money somehow is a social bond. It constitutes a social bond because it allows to build bridges among people through trade. Trade is exchanges, relationships. And during conflict, this is the evidence that money is based on trust. During conflict, trust vanishes, disappears, and the value of money collapses. All the one of you who have been working in different conflicts know that. We also all know that trust cannot be decreed. It must be taken care of, it must be built, it must be maintained. It's not something what we can impose. It's very fragile. And if you look at the etymology of the word trust, it has a lot to do with loyalty, with faith, but also with credit. A creditor, when he lends money to somebody else, a debtor or a borrower, trusts the fact that the borrower will repay his debt upon maturity. So the creditor is the one who trusts. So we see the links and the connection. And what happened as a result of the great financial crisis of 2008? Trust was destroyed. Trust in banks, trust in the financial system. What have been the purpose of all measures taken by then by governments, regulators, international organizations to restore trust? Is finance to blame for what happened? I don't believe so, because finance has no scheming intelligence. It doesn't exist as such. It's just a tool, a means, an instrument. And like all instruments, it depends on what people do with it. It can be used for the good or for the bad. It can be used to generate employment, investment, prosperity, economic development, or for greed, selfishness. Are greed and selfishness attributes of finance? I don't think so. I think they are, regrettably, characteristics of human nature. Look at the internet. On the internet, you can find Italian poetry, African music, exchanges of know-how, goodwill, intelligence. But it is also used to disseminate messages of hate, of racism, of terrorism. Should we close down the internet for that? No, I don't think so. Should we blame finance for all the evils of the world? I don't think so. I think we should empower people, take responsibility, and work together to restore the proper objective of finance, which is to help the economy, to help development, to finance employment, inclusion, and ultimately peace. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lionel, for that inspirational talk. We're now shifting from leadership to look at how peace happens through human connection and strong relationships. Our next speaker is Karim Wasfi. Karim is the conductor of the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra. He's also very well known for playing his cello at blast sites of terrorist attacks to rebuild connections amongst his fellow citizens. Karim will talk about how music happens through peace and creativity. Welcome, Maestro.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Peace. Trust, we heard. Leadership, we heard. Trust, whether it's a sensation, a feeling, a decision, or actually something you would build. Leadership is something you also build. But other than that, education, knowledge, integration, mutual understanding, compassion, the willingness to coexist, the willingness to decide, to be able to decide to coexist, and to live peacefully. Human interaction, relationships, passion, understanding, all these different elements and concepts are possible to achieve through music, actually, and doable through different approaches towards achievement and towards establishing a basic concrete foundation towards what peace is about. 2007, I promised to share good stories today because we do hear lots of bad stories on a daily basis, and it jeopardizes our ability to interact. In one case, it jeopardizes our ability to decide to be able to develop, and development is a process, and peace is also a process. It takes time, it takes a decision, it takes efforts, but it takes also two things: facts and love, intellectually and morally. 2007, I managed to reach the rehearsal venue in Baghdad, across the notorious Haifa Street, where all the battles and fierce fighting are going on based upon ethnic differences, ideological differences, probably ethnic cleansing. I would allow myself to use this terminology at the UN building. There was some kind of an ethnic cleansing and almost a civil war where people were actually killed for their name, even. If you're in the wrong area with the wrong name, you'll be shot dead in many cases. So I managed to reach the rehearsal venue, and half of the orchestra managed to actually make it over there to the rehearsal venue. I'm conducting Mozart Clarinet Concerto. I reached the second movement, and then across the street there's the Baghdad Medical City, where the major morgue is there, where people had actually lost count of the dead bodies that actually reaching the morgue and reaching the Baghdad medical city on a daily basis. What happens at the second movement of the Mozart? The opposite of that. The opposite of life. What happens is death. I could hear, smell, see death. The smell of dead bodies. And I'm sorry for being very graphic like that, but I thought I'll take the freedom of sharing that. The smell of the dead bodies made it across the street to the rehearsal venue. From that, 2008, 2009, a full house during our concerts. We created dedication, determination, and approach to life. And my decision, our decision, was how to beat terror, intimidation, brainwash, monopoly through beauty, refinement, and civilization and dialogue. From 9 families attending my concerts in 2008, I have 1,200, which is the capacity of the major concert hall in Baghdad at the moment, fully booked every concert. Socially, 2008, I start with the higher level of Peace Through Arts, which I have founded and I'm president of. Peace Through Art was an initiative. Now it's a fully functioning entity. Out of 372 young boys and girls from Baghdad, 43 were intensively taught. They joined the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra and they're fully paid. 43 individuals turned to professional musicians in wartime. Thank you. Refugee centers in churches after ISIS had somehow made it into Iraq, and a couple of mosques. I grabbed my cello. It's a 300 years old instrument, and I was sharing this with Akram this afternoon. It's actually older, probably 150 years older than the actual human rights convention, which made human rights even more important. That time does matter. Preventing extremism, being dedicated to building peace is doable through music, through self-empowerment, self-worth, self-realization, and improvement and development. This is doable through interaction, it's doable through integration, it's doable through the decision to be able to coexist and support each other. We all share the same concept here this afternoon, this evening. We go home and we think what peace is. There are good stories to share. Last TEDx in Baghdad, 5 orphans were trained for 2 weeks from being around the streets of Baghdad begging for money. They played their national anthem on stage before 900 people attending. Good stories are actually there. It's about what we share and how we share it. We share the dedication, the determination, and the power to be able to build peace and to sustain it. Because building peace is just a step towards what we need to achieve, but sustaining it is the real challenge here. When we talk about preventing terror and preventing intimidation, there are certain aspects that we can actually, there are certain actions that we can take in order to prevent that from happening. Our time now is a difficult time, and it's time to prevent good stories from being the major stories of every hour day, of our day-to-day lives every morning. Thank you for being, thank you for attending, and thank you for being so hopeful. We share inspiration and hope.
Thank you very much, Karim. And I think mostly thank you for reminding us about the power of music to create that glue and connectedness between people in times of war and violence. And also simply of reminding us that we are all one humanity. And this thought of one humanity and the connectedness between this is also going to be the theme of our next speaker. We will travel from Iraq back to Geneva, and our next speaker is Helen Kai Lin, an entrepreneur from Geneva, who to some of you may be very well known through some of her ventures, such as the Restaurant Hall de Lille. Helen will talk about how peace happens when public spaces are reconfigured to build stronger relationships between people. The floor is yours. Yes, please.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm bringing everybody back to Geneva, to our little town that is actually very big internationally. I moved here 26 years ago, and as a student, and I grew up with an ethic that wherever we live, no matter where, we try to get involved with people locally. And we also try to give as much as we take, but it has to go back and forth. And so I used to sing, and I was invited to many concerts. And one of the concerts that I gave was on the ship called the Bateau Genève. And I think a lot of people might know the Bateau Genève. It's a ship that's right next to the jet d'eau, and it doesn't never really move, but it's not in concrete, okay? So it is actually floating. And this ship, 20 years ago, had a very, very bad image. And like all stereotypes, we try to break down walls, but it was very hard. So Geneva is complicated because we're a small town, but we have the left, the right, people fight over things, and the left wanted to preserve the ship because it was a place that they gave breakfasts 2 or 3 times a week to homeless people. But it was also a place where people went and used illegal drugs. It was also a place where a lot of people who sold illegal drugs went to sell their and do their commerce. And then it was in the place where a lot of people thought was Geneva, the proud Geneva, the beautiful Geneva, the Geneva that during the world conferences where everybody comes, we want to be proud, we want to be able to share this and show people. We want to show the beauty of Geneva. We don't want to show the people who are ill or who are left out of the society or who are homeless or who needed the drugs to stay sane or there. And so the challenge came to me, and they asked me whether I could do something, maybe create something. And there was nothing on this ship. There was basically no running water. There was definitely not a bar, nothing at all. And I decided to create a festival that I thought would bring people together. So the people who would do this festival and make it happen would be people who actually came to the ship, because this was their home. These people actually stayed on the ship almost all the time. And then those who wanted to come onto the ship because they wanted to show visitors or heads of state, or even just to have a little drink on the ship once in a while on their day off, well, they wanted to come too because they felt that it was a place that belonged also to them. So we had some maybe territorial issues in the beginning and all that. And at first it wasn't always easy, so we tried to install the festival with people who are actually not necessarily there, not necessarily conscious, and sometimes also people who were very angry and frustrated. And we had a particular person who was very, very touching, and he had a very big problem with a lot of things in his life, but he basically lived on the ship. And he wanted to help because he wanted to do something. At the same time, he was very violent, and he didn't know how to control himself. And then when the people, the public, the general public, started coming to the ship and started going on to the ship and starting having meals on the ship and eating and enjoying themselves, he saw a world that was so different. And he was able to let go of all the hate that maybe he had and the walls that he had built against also the people that had it all made, that had the beautiful life, that had the perfect society that they're from. And the people who actually, the public that came onto the ship and had all this idea that, oh God, these horrible people that have to use illegal drugs to do something and to be able to exist, why are they here? Actually saw human beings that came from all over the world, saw human beings that were local people who are always there, who maybe had some hard times, and who maybe had different realities in their lives. And now it's been almost like 19 years that all this has started, and it's been quite nice as a trip and also like an experience. And I think it was something so simple finally. So what did it take to start this? After years and years, this ship existed since the 1970s. After years and years of conflict, finally it took 2 people to try to build a board to make a refrigerator so that we can serve just a few drinks to different people. And that helped bring everyone together because culturally, physically, we just needed to maybe share, like you said, share a cola, just to share something as a symbol and to say, yes, we are all the same. You know, we all might have problems one day and we might not always deal with it the same way. And therefore, we have to stop this stereotype and building these images of what the other group is. And now the ship is a place that has a full buvette where people can go and have a drink. You will be served by people who actually may almost use the ship as their home. They're behind the bar, they might be cooking, they might be doing the cleaning, but it gave them an activity and they're proud of it. And they love this place as much as the public loves the place. And now as much as the left and the right side of Geneva also enjoy the place. So I just wanted to let you know that maybe finally these little gestures in life, it just took a board, a refrigerator from the Migros, and 2 people to set it up to start a big momentum. And I think every one of you here can do it too. So maybe just we should all go out and change something in a little way. And it will make, I think, this beginning of Peace Happens an everyday thing for everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen, for sharing how we all can make a difference. Our next speaker is Marc Bonnet. He's the head of risk management at the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining. He has extensive experience in demining and will share some of his experiences, including from Colombia, on how peace happens through confidence building. Welcome, Marc.
Good afternoon. Bon après-midi.
Good afternoon.
Marc Bonnet.
My name is Marc Bonnet. I work for the International Center of Geneva for Humanitarian Demining. I'm going to switch to English now.
I have quite long experience in number of countries which had undergone long conflict, and the last one was Colombia, where I spent 4 years. Mine action was my main subject. I was heading a United Mine Action Service team, and we were trying to support the Colombian government to address the contamination problem, the problem with the pollution of explosive remnants of war. I need to talk a bit about mines because, of course, probably most of you have heard about the word mines and have heard about anti-personnel mines, but I think we don't know much about what mines are about. They are explosive weapons, and of course we know that some people are clearing those mines, are trying to get rid of the problem, but we don't know really how, and we don't really what is happening around mine clearance, around mine action. Our mines are eventually small devices like this one. This is one of them. I mean, I brought it. It's a dummy. Otherwise, I couldn't have entered the UN. And that's another one. Very small, very teeny. That's the correct size of the mine I'm presenting you. Well, in Colombia, we don't have this type of mines. In Colombia, we have improvised mines, and they are made out of plastic container and fertilizer as matter that will explode. Mines are a problem, not only because they are killing people, maiming people, but also because they are blocking the life of the people, because they are blocking land. They don't allow people to walk around. They don't allow people to use their agricultural field. And of course, they maim and kill people belonging to the military, belonging to the fighters, but they also obviously maim civilians. And not just during the war, for a long time. And we know that many countries, Cambodia, Angola, Mozambique, Afghanistan, still at war anyway, are suffering from long-term problem. And of course, the war in Cambodia ended in 96, 97, and they are still clearing a lot of mines. Same in many countries. Now, about Colombia. Colombia is, of course, is interesting at the moment for many reasons, and you probably read the press, and things are happening in Colombia. Well, Colombia is undergoing a long conflict since 40, 50 years. The Colombian military fighting the rebel, the FARC, and you all heard about this acronym. And this country has left a lot of mines behind. I mean, we have counted probably more than 11,000 victims in that country. And the mine problem is of a big size. It's a real issue in Colombia. Now, knowing that, with my small team in Colombia, I started to think about how to help in this process. Of course, that was the job we had to do there. How to get people to start thinking positively about how to solve that particular problem. And what we did was to start looking at other experience we have from other parts of the world. How could that experience be useful? How this experience could be of interest for the Colombian context? And when peace negotiations were open in September, October 2012, of course it was quite a unique opportunity to raise the issue of mine as an option to contribute to peace building. What is specific with mine action work is that mine action people work very closely to community. They mediate with the community. They talk to the in many countries to the rebel group. They talk to the military, and ultimately they have a very critical and central role at a very local level to boost the idea of peace and to boost the idea of possible dialogue. And this is what we've tried to also encourage in Colombia. We started lobbying very hard. Actually, we encountered lots of resistance. Of course, when the country is fighting rebels or when two countries are fighting, there is very little space to talk about positive actions. And obviously, we had to lobby the ministry. We had to find ways to communicate. We had to find a way to pass on messages to the FARC in some way, to the peace negotiators, and we used all the possible means at that time. It was really lobbying. It took quite a lot of time. It was quite tough because we were encountering a lot of resistance. But meeting a peace negotiator in an airport in Cali, as far as I had this experience, and I was lucky enough to meet this peace negotiator from the Colombian government for more than an hour and have the time to explain him how we could initiate a pilot project, even though the conflict was not yet over and the negotiations were still on. That was a unique time we had to for instance, pass on these particular messages. And this went on, and this way, with the support of the UN team and the UN resident representative, we could reach a number of people FARC sympathizer, we had different meetings. We had also meetings with the Norwegian and the Cuban ambassador, who were closely associated with the negotiations in Havana. And this gave way to and opened the way for a pilot project. And actually, a pilot project did start in April 2015 with both the military and the FARC, with the support of a Norwegian specialized organization, did start a joint demining project in 2 departments, in 2 municipalities in Colombia. This was a strong signal. It was highly publicized. It was a strong signal for the public in general that positive action was also possible from using, I would say, a weapon of war to be transformed, having a weapon of war to be transformed in a weapon of peace. And this is a project that has been completed very recently, and we did visit that project. We did see the military and the FARC working together in clearing those landmines. Well, peace is happening in Colombia. We have a few more steps. We hope that will go on positively. I think I have, and with my team and all the partners and colleagues, we have contributed in a small way, but in an important way, to also this particular peace process. And watch Colombia. I hope in the coming days we will have some good news. It's not the end of the road for Colombia. That Colombia has still a number of problems to solve, but solving that one will be very important. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the presentation. Yeah. Throughout the Geneva Peace Talk, we have emphasized the role of music. And talking sometimes relates to words. But we would just like to take a step back and just again connect to this musical theme here today, where a lot of communication does not necessarily happen through words, but through music. So I would like, again, to invite Karim Wasfi on stage for us to share some of that words which are not expressed as words, but through tones. Karim.
Thank you so much, Kareem, for sharing your beautiful music with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, so far we've looked at how peace happens through leadership, human connections, and strong relationships. In our next section, we're going to look at the most important part of how peace happens through trust. Our next speaker is Ahmed Labnouche. He's a Middle East and North African expert. Currently, he's leading Interpeace's efforts in Libya and Tunisia, and he will share his reflections on community-level peace building. Welcome, Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this event for their valuable efforts in bringing this amazing group of people together to talk about something so valuable, so important, especially today. Their efforts are needed today more than ever. We hear a lot of talk about uncertainty. We hear a lot of talk about living in trying times. A lot of people are talking more about conflict, about war, about what's dividing us. But very few people are talking about what actually puts us together or brings us together, the things that we share. And while talking about peace, I'd like to apologize first about this unwanted guest that might be disrupting my talk, which is my cough, my cold, and sneezing every once in a while. So pardon me for that. I'm supposed to be talking about peace, but before I talk about peace, I need to first talk about conflict, about the differences that divide societies, especially the communities where I work. For the past 5 years, which coincide with what is commonly termed the Arab Spring, which is slowly turning into an Arab decade, for the past 5 years, I've been working in the Middle East, North Africa specifically, most specifically in Libya. Today, when you hear talk about Libya, all you hear talk about is war, is conflict, is the fighting between different groups. Rarely do you hear about the initiatives that take place within the communities, what happens between the people. It's very hard to imagine unless you are on the ground. It's hard to imagine the state of affairs in communities where the state has completely collapsed. The social contract that bonded people together is no longer existent. The hospital doesn't work. There are no police. Nobody's going to say anything if you run a red light. There is nobody to turn to. So what we hear about could actually be worse, yet it's not. And the question is, why? These are communities that have agency. These are communities that have bonded together to make a change away from all the hoopla of the international media, all the negativity that we hear about. Throughout my experience over the last 5 years, I've seen communities bond together to avoid conflict. Communities in Libya, for example, where they have come together to make sure that they stay away from the national level divisions, from the things that are causing a lot of chaos in the country. I'll give you the example of one particular woman about 2 years ago that I've run into in a conversation, in a consultation. She had a neighbor that was like family to her. Their kids would go between the houses. You know, they come from this door, they go into this door. They sleep, they share the same bedrooms. They eat sometimes if they are in their neighbor's house. They stay over the table for lunch, for dinner. Then the conflict erupted in 2011. The two families belonged to two different groups, two ethnic different groups. Suddenly, the bonds were broken. They no longer talk to each other. They no longer visit with each other. And this woman, for almost 2 years, said to me, I feel like I've lost a limb. I feel like a disease has struck me. I think about it every day. Yet they never made an attempt to connect. because of all the things that are not internal. It's not about them. It's how the impact of the society as a whole forces them to think that this is how they're supposed to behave. They are supposed to dislike each other, to hate each other, yet live next to each other. We had a long conversation, and a couple of weeks later, I hear back from her. She actually took the initiative to go back and knock on her neighbor's door and say sorry. She said sorry for nothing, but she said sorry for the 2 years they haven't been talking. That simple gesture spurred a movement within the community, a movement that was driven by women. Women coming from different groups. This is a town I'm not going to name, but women come from different groups, different ethnic groups who absolutely hated each other. While the men were fighting, the women were getting together, trying to find solutions, trying to pressure their own husbands to stop the fighting. And it worked. These are efforts by the community. There is also the story of another community where different communities, where the youth, they belong again to different ethnic groups. They have historical differences, some of them dating back over 100 years, but they all resurfaced in 2011. Because of these differences, there is an abundance of weapons, a complete collapse of law and order, no security institutions. These communities fight against each other, villages, tribes. A group of young people decided to organize a football tournament between the villages. As you can imagine, it's a recipe for disaster when you have such challenging environment. They called on another community that has always been considered as a neutral community. So the arbiter was chosen from that community. The first few games were very challenging. Actually, if I recall, I think about 4 or 5 games never actually reached the end. But there was something tremendous that happened afterwards. Even when they started fighting with light weapons, they were no longer shooting at each other. You'd have to see it to believe it. They would be shooting to convince the other that I mean business, but they're actually shooting over their heads. So you see a lot of, you hear a lot of sounds of weapons, but you see no damage. There are no casualties. And that started a movement by the youth. So an example by the women, another example through the youth. They are the ones who spurred this movement. A third example in another community, and these are communities, by the way, that have been able to avoid the conflict, the national level chaos that we hear about in the country right now. These are communities that have been able to build on these events to maintain stability and peace locally through small initiatives like these. In another community, there was fighting between two different communities. One particular leader within one community was accidentally killed by their neighboring community. So naturally, given the nature of youth and the abundance of weapons, as I mentioned before, all the youth from the other community decided to get their weapons and attack the other community, their enemy. The elders within the community decided to block the brigade headquarters, or where all the heavy weapons were stored. They literally lay down on the ground, controlling the passages, the areas where all the technicals, the pickup trucks that you see with anti-aerial guns, the 14.5 machine guns, they blocked the space with their bodies. Now imagine, this is a community that has very strong traditions of hierarchy, of respect for the elderly. The elderly, when they did this, this was actually putting down on their value within the community, but nonetheless, they decided to do this. They took the initiative to do this, and it made a difference. They suffered in the beginning, all the swearing, the name calling, but a couple of days later, their youth thanked them. That community today plays a major role where it is based, plays a major role as a neutral community. When crime happens, when somebody commits a crime, other communities will take their perpetrators to this community. Again, we are functioning in a context where there is no law and order, there is no justice, there are no prison systems, there is no prosecutor, there is no police. So you have to figure out how to deal with this situation. What I'm trying to say here is that communities are ingenuous. Communities have the initiative. We are here outside as observers within the international community. We talk a lot about what's going wrong, about the bad things within these communities, but we're not talking about what's going right. What is it that these communities are doing that we can actually learn from? What is it that is succeeding within these communities that we can then take and apply elsewhere? Because the more we talk about peace, the more it actually anchors itself within our value systems, the more it is likely that it will happen. And vice versa. We are constantly bombarded by the negative imagery of war. The more we talk about war, it affects our psyche. And then we tend to believe that peace is not going to happen. And all of this, the three examples that I gave, are based on identity, how people see themselves, but in particular, leadership, and the role of values that are traditional values, the elderly in these communities. I'm told that my time is up, so I thank you all. I forgot that I didn't say who I am. My name is Ahmed Labnouj. I work for Interpeace in Libya. A Moroccan-American who straddles two identities, two cultures, a traditional Moroccan identity and another identity that is infused with the liberal modernist values of the US. And these are examples that I live in the societies where I work every day. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Nos prochains orateurs vont rester.
Our next speakers will be remaining on the level of the communities, a different community, but very near to us. It's the Paki, nearby. Our speakers here will share their histories of their commitment to their communities. For some it's near, for some it's not, but it's nearby. It has 124 nationalities, and it's a small urban area, and it covers all range of socioeconomic divisions. And it's next to us, and peace is built day after day right next to us. So Nicholas will tell us more about how that's built. And you also could change the world here, right where you are, right at your doorstep. And yes, here in Geneva, there's precarity and conflict, and how could that affect us? My name is Mireille Wilmer, and my name is Nicolas Wilchad, and we're going to be sharing with you a project that takes place and unfolds right next to us in a neighborhood called Paki in Geneva. This is the neighborhood that I grew up in. It's a microcosm. It's fascinating, and it's kind of a village and kind of a global village. It is also a place of contrast. We have big, luxurious hotels, but we also have a heart of our neighborhood that has migration and prostitution as well. I studied economic sciences. In 2007, I graduated, and I have a lot of experience, or some experience, I should say, in NGOs of an international scope. But also, I've worked very locally, much more locally, indeed. My neighborhood and it's where I received my education. I had different experiences there, and this has shown me the importance of the link between global and local. And this has allowed me to learn about this link and the public policy and local needs. In Paki, I arrived in 2003, but I was just there working for peace and security. I wasn't that interested in the neighborhood, and so it was clear to me that I had to go far away where they needed me. So I worked in Haiti, I worked in the Central African Republic and Somalia as well. But over the years, I had doubts gathering. I had good intentions, and there are a lot of questions that I asked myself about the justice about my commitments. And so I came back to Geneva. That was 2012. And I was rather surprised about the security discourse that was present, deals going down, and insecurity and crime. And these were the leitmotifs. But really, what I saw is that the solutions were throw out the foreigners, put police on the corners. This is a caricature, but it's also the sense that I had. And I said, well, in Geneva, we could probably do better than that. We have the resources, we can be creative, and we should show as much. So I got involved in an association of locals in my community. And then in 2014, the town of Geneva launched a process of local projects, and I was elected as sort of a coordinator. I began to work as a community activist in 2014. I was assigned to work in Paki, which was great because that's the place that I know the best, and that's where I had my connections. So this is really a process that brings together municipal authorities and also inhabitants from other areas to decide upon what the priority issues were for the inhabitants, and we could think together to dream up solutions, common solutions. So we know the primary concerns of the locals in the Paki. Everyone knows this. There's not a nightlife. We're between the lake and the train station. There's some conflicts that can explode at night, but it's also where we see the deals going down and drug problems, and this makes locals scared and parents as well. These deals often go down, sadly, near the schools. In Paki, there are a great many stakeholders in different spheres year-round. It's an active community and neighborhood. The city of Geneva has wanted to really bring about a community that can bring everyone to the table and not just look at items on an isolated manner, but also look at the global issues that surround the neighborhood. So we worked for numerous months to create a roadmap, but these are proposals made by the inhabitants. We met several times per month, and this took a lot of focus from our inhabitants, men and women alike. And during these meetings, when we talked about drug dealers, and people talked about it as a problem. But as the discussions unfolded, we started to look at solutions. I remember that in November of 2013, just before the neighborhood contract actually got launched, we had created these sort of sit-ins and meetings to look at matters that affected the neighborhood, and drug dealing was an issue. There were some 50 people present in the room, and we could feel the power in the room. There was a lot of intensity, and then we had a break, and during the break, one of the associations was able to sort of bring together some alleged sort of dealers together in the back of the room, and we invited them to talk about who they were, how they got to Geneva, how they're trying to survive in Geneva. And what really touched me or affected me then was the ability to listen from the inhabitants and the respect that was in the room, and the fact that dialogue was possible even when we're dealing with this type of issue. And we were saying not near schools, not near the kids. And of course, there's no magic wand we can wave to solve this. But in our neighborhoods, one of the projects that we're looking for is the deployment of a mediators group, the nocturnal correspondents that try to solve these conflicts or manage them over time. It's in our roadmap, and we do want the authorities to step up and take a stance. We're not sure how that's going to unfold. But with my colleague here, we're sort of an interface between the municipality and the inhabitants. And we explain to the municipal authorities what the substance is really of these proposals from the community. So we explain also to the people what the complexity is for these issues for the municipality with its political issues and how long it might take. So this is sometimes difficult. Sometimes we're between a rock and a hard place, but we are convinced that this is an important role that we can play. But that's not quite the end of the story. We don't know what's going to come of all this, but what we can tell you right now is that all this dialogue on this day of peace does allow for us to get involved and take a role, ownership and buy-in where we are. Geneva is not just a problem it might be a problem for wealthy people, but we do think that here next door, that's where we start to change things in our neighborhood. In my experience, well, perhaps I didn't need to go so far away. Perhaps just getting involved locally, we can have more buy-in and be more respectful maybe even of the place where we're living. But I encourage you here in this room, this is possible. You don't necessarily need to have big diplomas and a lot of experience, although that might help. But really, any of us can get a great deal done close to home. And if the locals and the municipality are able to understand each other, then we can do a great deal together. Thank you. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Nicolas and Mireille.
Thank you, Nicholas and Mireille.
Karim reminded us about the power of music to help people deal with the pain and suffering from war and violence, and that we are all one humanity. Our last speakers today will sing their peace talk and show that music can act like a glue to make human connections hold and relationships stronger. They will perform 2 songs, the first about the leaders of the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, which connects back to our earlier theme about the importance of leadership at all levels, and their second song is about the wisdom of elders. Let there be music for peace. Please join me in welcoming Posfoshok.
Una cosa tango Aujourd'hui, des fois on est un petit peu plus critique, heureusement.
Oui.
Nous avons voulu aujourd'hui passer le message avec la deuxième chanson que la sagesse se trouve parfois derrière, dans les paroles et les habitudes de nos grands-parents et de nos ancêtres. Voilà.
On parlait
Le temps opère contre nos pères. C'est tout à l'envers. Même nos mères traînaient des chaînes d'amour à c'est ton histoire dans ce miroir. Dansons ce soir en mémoire. Oh ya ya, 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 Si c'était la liberté qu'on nous avait donnée, si c'était nous libérer de nos passés, passe le temps et passe les heures, mais ma foi demeure, car le temps opère contre nos pères, c'est tout à l'enfer. C'est dictature contre nature, oui le futur. Yaba, voilà, c'est notre histoire dans ce miroir. Voilà, dansons ce soir en mémoire. Voilà. Il paraît que nos mères savaient pas pour nous apaiser. Si c'est vrai, comment faire? Personne ne va plus les écouter. On s'est fait un envers pendant de nous fausses libertés. Juste un fait, oh mon frère, de quoi tu dois nous résigner?
Dans tes riches et dans ta tête, les autres ont la tête, ils achètent, inventés, le sentiment, les gratifications, l'exploitation de la terre, toutes ces richesses, toutes ces princesses. Le capitalisme n'est pas là, loin de là, qui dépense les portes ouvertes sur la misère, à la lisière, chez les sincères, dans les lycées, le grand feu, qui ne sait pas avec un blanc en arrière, quand on j'achète. Où sont les mères? Où sont nos mères?
So you have now heard from 12 very inspiring and amazing speakers. As they've shown through their stories, peace really happens in many different contexts, near and far, and in the most unexpected places. We all have a role to play in building peace. Our question for you is, what are you going to do in your daily lives, at your job, or in your families to build peace? We'd like to ask you here and all of our viewers online to share your acts of peace using our hashtag GVA PeaceTalks.
Over the next few weeks, there will be many other opportunities to expand the space of dialogue and building peace and resolving conflicts. From the 7th to the 11th of November, there will be Geneva Peace Week, which is a collaborative effort that brings more than 50 events in 1 week together on peace-related issues. There will also be the annual meeting of the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform on the topic of war economies in Syria on the 9th of November.
We're also continuing to take the spirit of Geneva on the road, and hopefully a lot of this energy from the Peace Talks today. Peace Talks are being planned in select cities around the world, and I'm very pleased to announce that the next stop is London on the 3rd of November. We also hope to see you at next year's Geneva Peace Talks to celebrate the International Day of Peace. Once more, we'd like to give a round of applause for the supporters of the Geneva Peace Talks, the Swiss Confederation, the Republican Canton of Geneva, the City of Geneva, and Mirabeau. And we'd also like to thank our digital partner, Darwin Digital, for their support.
Thanks also goes to all of our, yes, right. Hold your claps, because you need a few more of those. We also want to thank all of our colleagues who made the Peace Talks today possible, and a special thanks goes to our interpreters and to our technicians who made us talk peace today. We now have the pleasure to invite you to a reception just outside of this room, and don't miss the photo booth where you can have a photo taken of you on the occasion of the International Day of Peace. And now you need to really hold your claps, because we invite all of our speakers on stage to thank them for their inspiring story, and thanks to all of you for being here. Come on, come on, come on.
Let's get up for one picture.